Hello everyone, my name is J1. We're glad to be here to present our Farsight. Most recently, we have seen developing AI apps has become easier than ever before because people can use large language models as AI generalists to do a wide range of different tasks such as translators and data mining to chatbots. Moreover, different companies and researchers also propose many easy-to-use AI prototyping tools such as Google AI Studio, Workflow, and GPT Playground. People can easily write prompts to create their own AI apps. While developing AI apps becomes easy, ensuring responsible AI becomes harder. We have those two corresponding challenges. Because there are different capabilities of those technologies, there are also different ways of technology can go wrong. And also we have seen a wider spectrum of AI developers. So like doctors, designers, and creative writers, they all can create their own AI apps. And many of them do not have traditional computer science background, so they are not familiar with responsible AI practice. Therefore, there is a dire need to educate those new AI prototypers to learn about responsible AI to avoid their AI apps to cause harm in real life. And how do people practice our AI practice in real life right now? So people often you apply the AI practice in the tail end of development workflow, and we wonder if we can apply our AI earlier to identify and assess and mitigate the harm when they are writing the first prompt. There are several advantages. For example, people can prioritize our AI issues, take actions early, also we can reach out to a broader audience about our AI. And to design and develop such a tool to help a user to foster their awareness about our AI, we conducted a formative code design study with 10 AI prototypers recruited from Google. So we get a lot of feedback about our existing design sketches and prototypes, or have a lot of new design ideas. By using the feedback we gained from the code design study, we designed and developed Farsight, the first interactive in situ interactive tool that can help users to foster responsible awareness. Users can visit our tool by visiting the link on the top right. And right now, we'll give a demo of this tool. So Farsight can be integrated into different prototyping tools. For example, here we have traditional interface and we're writing a prompt for legal brief writers. So after clicking the run button, you see the Farsight symbol change the color from blue to red to alert the user about potential harm for their AI prompts. Internally, we use the embedding of a user's prompt, although the embeddings of over 3,000 AI incident reports to surface relevant AI incidents and a cautionary tale to help users to envision potential harms. For example, here are the news headlines about lawyers using ChatGPT to generate legal briefs. You can click them to see more details. And below that, we have potential use cases. So here we use AI to generate different use cases and the harm that can happen. For example, lawyers use it to quickly draft legal briefs. They may lose job because of generation of being offensive or misleading. Users can also click different tabs to view more harm use cases under different categories, like intended use cases, high-stake use cases such as financial and medicine domains. Also misuse, so here the bad actors intentionally use this product to cause harms. Okay, let's try a different prompt. So here I'm using a simpler prompt, like a joke writer, to tell me a joke. After running the prompt, you can see Farsight remains blue because there are not many relevant AI incident reports, but we still generate different use cases and potential harm based on other joke writers. For example, comedians can use it to generate different jokes for their stand-up routines, and potential harm is like they may lose job if the generation being offensive. Similarly, cyberbully used to make fun of others, while harm that victims of the bully might experience like distress and depression. Okay, let's try a different prompt. So here I'm using French translators. So I'm translating from English to French. After clicking the run button, we see some potential use cases and incidents. You can click the blue button to open the harm envisioner at the pop-up. Here, so we use the AI to generate a summary of the AI prompts. For example, here is a translated sentence from English to French, which looks good to me. I will click yes. Then it shows the functionality of different use cases. User can zoom and pan to navigate interactive tree visualization. There is one pretty interesting use case. For example, doctor used to translate medical records. User can hover over maybe to change the content of the use case or change the category of the use case. User can also click the button to generate different stakeholders involved in that use cases and the harm that can happen to those stakeholders. For example, patients may be harmed by receiving incorrect treatment due to inaccurate translation of their medical records. User can click the fire button on the top right to rate the severity of different harms. They can also change the category of different harms. So here with the AI to classify different harm based on a recent taxonomy of different harms, but user can manually change them. For example, here AI predicted that diminished health, which looks good. User can also generate more harm, so that a patient can lose trust of it due to incorrect translations. Other harm might be doctors may lose jobs due to translation being inaccurate, hospital may increase legal liabilities, family and friends of patients may lose trust, doctors who do not use AI products. If users do not like the stakeholders, you can change them, for example, society at large, or you can create a button to generate different harm for those new stakeholders. For example, society may have increased healthcare costs due to mistranslation of medical records. Okay, so here's one particular use case of doctor translation. Users can also add their own use case. For example, immigrants use it to communicate with government officials. Similarly, you can generate different stakeholders and different harms under that use case. For example, immigrants might face discrimination due to generation being inaccurate or biased, and so on and so forth. People can use a human AI collaborative way to envision potential different use cases, stakeholder, and harms. And eventually, user can export all the content into a markdown file. So Farsight is open source, and we have reusable modules to support any prompting tools. Also provide a Chrome extension so the user can use them with Google AI Studio today. User can also use our Python library to use Farsight in different computational notebooks, such as Jupyter Notebooks, VS Code Notebooks, and Google Colab. After having the tool, we want to evaluate the performance of our tool. So we conduct evaluations user study with 42 AI prototypers recruited from Google. So they'll have diverse roles such as software engineer, product managers, and UX researchers, and they'll have different familiarity level with our AI and prompting. So first, we want to study how does Farsight affect users' ability and approach to identify potential harms. So we want to compare Farsight with the existing resources such as framework and taxonomies. And for the Farsight, we also have two Farsight variants. So we want to study what's the role of the human AI collaborative harm envisioning. So for the full version and the Farsight Lite version does not have harm envisioner. And for the baseline, we use the existing combination of a commonly used resource from the harm modeling guide from Microsoft, also the recent harm taxonomy. So we combine them into Google Doc. We provide some users so the participant can see the harm modeling workflow, some different prompts help them think about different harms, also a recent harm taxonomy to think about different dimensions of the harms. Then we conducted a between subject study to let the user to see what changed after using the tools. First, we ask participants to envision as many harms as possible based on a prompt writing for email summarizers. Then we let the user to use different tools like Farsight Lite and envisioning guide, also using a different prompt like using toxicity classifier to let them to envision harm with the help of different intervention tools. Then again, so we add participants to independently envision harms on another prompt like article summarizer, which is similar to email summarizer to make sure the difference is valid. In the end, we conduct an interview to let the user to reflect what has changed about their ability and approach to identify harms. We also recruit 7 area experts to rate the severity and the likelihood of the harm we collected from different envisioning exercises. We also ask the user to think aloud and also analyze think aloud transcripts, also the interview transcript. So we have some different findings. The first one is that user envision more harm after using Farsight. So here's before and after comparison. We found a significant difference between Farsight Lite versus a guide. So after using Farsight, people can generate more harm independently. And also there is no significant change for severity and the likelihood for their envisioned harm before and after using different interventions. We also found that Farsight users become more aware of end users. So from our observations, we see there are some 6 patterns people use when they envision harm. So people think about failure mode driven, so people think about how the model can go wrong, then if they go wrong, what kind of harm they can cause. User driven, people think about high stakes, misuse, people think about indirect stakeholders, people think about cascading harm. So we define cascading harm as a harm caused by other harms. So here on the chart, on the top is the number of users applying those patterns. On the bottom is the number of users to not apply those patterns. So we see some significant changes by having Farsight, especially the full version of Farsight. So users become more aware of the user-driven approach, thinking more about indirect stakeholders, and thinking more about cascading harm when they're generating harm independently after using Farsight. Then we want to study how effective is Farsight in assisting users in envisioning potential harms. So here we design a within subject study. So we put different participants into 4 condition groups to let them try out different tools: Farsight, envisioning guide, Farsight. So we'll swap the order to make sure to mitigate the ordering effects. Then similar to the first one, so we have an interview to ask the participant to compare those tools have used. So with the pros and cons for different tools. So we have some interesting findings. The first one, also similar to the first one, we found like when using Farsight, people can envision in more harms. So here, so we have significant difference between using Farsight versus a guide. Also, there is no significant difference for severity and the likelihood. We also found it very interesting. We found that Farsight spark user to think beyond immediate harms. So oftentimes, when people are looking at the different use cases, the harm generated by Farsight, they think about more harms based on the existing resources and harms. For example, seeing Farsight suggesting moderator used to detect toxicity using toxicity classifier, hate group used to recruit people. Some participants combine those two together to think about online moderator may be harmed from hate groups if they just censor, if they just remove their content. Another example is like the Farsight suggests maybe HR can use a toxicity classifier to screen job applicants, and job applicants may be unfairly rejected. So by seeing those content spark the user to think about maybe the diversity effort may be harmed, maybe the company will lose money due to exclusion of qualified candidates. So people can think more beyond the immediate harm, so the harm caused by other harms. We also found Farsight inspire users to think about mitigation strategies. So when using Farsight, people voluntarily think about potential way to mitigate those harms. Some people think about maybe you need to implement a peeling process, maybe to collect better data for fine-tuning. Some participants also mentioned that they just stop implementing the tool because they're not worth the risk. We also found out Farsight is more useful and often preferred compared to existing resources. Finally, we want to study what are the main challenges people face when envisioning harms and how does Farsight help them. So here we use all our the recordings from our Think Aloud session, our interview, to study what the main challenges and how does Farsight help. We found 3 main challenges when people envision harms. First, it's very hard to brainstorm use cases. So it seems participants very hard to think about how other people might use the different AI products and tools and features. And also participants face like some bias and subjectivity in harm envisioning. So some participants mentioned they're coming from a very American-centric point of view. They can ignore some other perspective when envisioning harms. Also, people not experience when envisioning harm. Also, some people also feel discomfort when envisioning harms. And Farsight can be very helpful for some of the challenges. For example, Farsight can help users to brainstorm use cases. Many participants mentioned it's very helpful to see AI-generated content, but really provide a wider net to cast, or provide a very good starting point to break the blank slate to help them get started to brainstorm more use cases, stakeholders, and harms. Also, sometimes AI-generated content can be very unexpected, and for some participants, it can be thought-provoking. So it can provide a different perspective to envision harm, to break their confirmation bias or their norm to think about other potential ways to envision harms. Also, participants like our in situ or in workflow design, they think it's very easy to get started using Farsight with their prototyping, so they can start learning about how to envision harms. Finally, we'll discuss some limitation of feature works. So in our work, Farsight, we focus on identifying and assessing harms, so we do not really help a user to mitigate those harms. So feature researcher can think about ways to help a user give some suggestions, actionable feedback to prevent those harm from happening, such as like maybe changing the prompt, safeguarding the prompt, adding fine-tuning and data. And also, we have noticed some subjectivity in harm identification assessment, even between our raters. So some raters think this harm is very severe, some other raters do not think this is severe. So I think future researchers can have a better way to assess like severity and likelihood of different harms. And also think it was very promising way, in situ design is very promising to provide users for responsible AI research and also design. So future researcher can also use our design to try to promote explainability, fairness, and privacy during very early prototyping stage. And that's the end of my talk. And again, Farsight is open source and we have a public demo, so you can try out a demo by visiting the link on the top right. Thank you so much.